I think it's a lot more fun in life when you get a chance to hang out with other people that are championing their own life and going for it. We've launched a Facebook group called Donnie Success Champions Group. Man, come hang out with us. Every day we are having uplifting, badass conversations that are just, helping people go further in their life. So if you want to, go to Facebook, come hang out, Donnie Success Champions Group. We'll be glad to see you. All right, guys, this is going to be another badass show. I'm bringing on a new buddy of mine, Matt Gagnon. And, dude, I can tell you, man, already from his vibe, we're quick chatting, we're getting along. He's sitting here romantically with the fireplace in the background. So, this is going to be really, really fun. But I'm Donnie Boivin. This is Donnie Success Champions. Matt, brother, welcome to the show, my friend. Tell us your damn story.
What is happening? That fire is romantic, but it is hot as hell. It is burning my back right now. I was like, oh, this would be a nice ambiance. And I sit down. I'm like, holy shit, this is hot. So
do I need to bring out the candles on my end?
Oh, no, it's cool. I'll take care. The romance is all on my end, man. I got you. So, I'm thrilled to be here. So let me tell you, let's see. What was I supposed to do? Tell you a little bit about myself, right? So I am originally from Maine, born and raised. And I spent the last 12 years in Austin, Texas. My wife and I are both from Maine. Met my wife when we were 15. So we've been together for a while now. I'm 38. So we've been together for a long time. We actually met as competitive fighters in jiu-jitsu. So I was wrestling and grappling with her for 2 years before we even started dating. So she's a tough lady. Arguments in our house are awesome. So it's great. Get in the cage.
Like the wrestling mat room.
Oh yeah, it's just get in the cage. Let's settle this. And so it's awesome, man. We got a 5-year-old boy named Fox, and kid lights me up. And man, life's been an adventure. I've spent 15 years in retail, and I spent that time traveling all over the country. And that's what brought me to Austin, Texas originally. Man, I'll tell you, I just burned myself out in that job. Someone started giving me money and praise at an early age and started promoting me in my 20s. And I just forgot everything I ever wanted to do in life. I just ran with that. I was like, oh, I've got money. I'm getting praise. I'm running with it, And I guess for me, it was something I was trying to find something that replaced football, because I played high school football and I loved the praise I got from that. I loved the rush I got from it. And I was trying to find something to replace that. And yeah, my career was one of those things, I could out hustle everybody. I wasn't always the most talented guy, but I could outwork anybody, and so I would do that. Believe me, I was a 150-pound offensive guard, and I was all conference, I was good. I was starting varsity, man. You don't tell me I'm too small or I can't do something. I will find a way.
Bite to their ankles at that weight?
That's all I did, man. I pulled and trapped all day. I just pulled and trapped. I ran a fast 40. My back would be behind me. I'm like, I'm taking you home, baby. So, yeah, I was a human battering ram. But again,
that's awesome.
I guess what I didn't know back then was how angry I was at that age. I thought I had a really good life going on, but I bottled a lot of stuff up. So because when I put that helmet on, man, I was a different human being. I was like, you're telling me I can hit people as hard as I want legally? And they're like, yes. I'm like, perfect. But when the helmet came off and I couldn't put it back on anymore, I didn't know what to do. I didn't realize how angry I was. So, going into work and having that career, man, really fulfilled a lot of things for me, but I didn't really know who I was. I was spending so much time in my life trying to people please. I came from a divorced family. I was put in that hero type of role to try and please and keep the peace and mediate and be the strong one. I was told at a young age, you're the man of the house. And I don't think people understand what that does, to a young man, to tell them that as a kid,
right.
And so came from all that stuff. And, man, I just spent my whole career trying to please other people, my bosses, trying to be a different leader than I naturally was. And not knowing my own values, man, I just I filled those empty tanks with stuff that didn't belong there, and I thought it would make me feel better. I bought shit. I bought a lot of stuff, fancy clothes. I bought a BMW that just made me look like a douchebag. I mean, I like the car. Nothing against anyone who drives a BMW. The thing is, it's just not for me. But I bought it because I thought other people would think I was cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a little ticker on my show that every time somebody realizes when they buy a fancy car that they're a douchebag, it's just gonna start ringing a bell. I mean, because I can't tell you how many guys I've had on the show. They're like, I thought success was cars and nice clothes. And when I got that shit, all I realized is it just made me an asshole. You know?
It did. Yeah. I was a raging tool at that point in my life. And, you know, that was the thing. Like, I was just getting access to all of these things. And I would spend this money on stuff hoping it would fill this emptiness inside that I didn't really know was there, but I was trying to feel happy in life. And so, yeah, the cars, you know, the clothes, I was eating a lot too, because that would make, I was emotionally eating a lot too, you know, even though I was trying to hit the gym. I was traveling 25 nights a month, you know, I was always on the road. And then on top of that, man, like, I didn't know I was getting sick in my 20s, but apparently I was. My energy was starting to dip, and I was always praised for high energy. I mean, that was the thing. I could out hustle anybody. And all of a sudden I started getting tired all the time. One, I hadn't slept in like years, it felt like. But the main thing was I started drinking 15 cans of sugar-free Red Bull a day. From the age of 25 to like 30, I was drinking 15 cans of sugar-free Red Bull a day, plus 60 milligrams of Adderall. So, man, I could deadlift my
Jeep. You were doing over-the-counter cocaine. Got it.
I was. Woo! I was bulletproof, baby. You know, until I wasn't. It catches up with you. And the thing was, you know, people praise that too. They're like, man, you're insane. Like, you'll work nonstop. But I was stressed out of my mind during that time period too. I didn't have the best, you know, support system then. And man, by the time I was 30, I mean, I had like a few nervous breakdowns. I had raging anxiety. I was not a good person. You know, I was not in a good chapter in life. I'm a good person, but I really strayed from my values and negotiated with a lot of my morals at that time period in my life.
Right.
And I just didn't know who I was anymore, to the point when I reached 30 years old, I feel completely unlovable, completely lost. And this idea of like, man, if anyone knew how rotten I was inside, I'd just be completely unlovable, man. So at that point, that's when I decided, like, you know, I'll just take this whole bottle of Adderall and we'll just call it a day, and that'll be it. And, you know, luckily it didn't work out that way. Luckily, you know, that night as I took all those pills, like, something happened where I remember hearing some music playing, and I was hearing the song Hallelujah playing in the background. It's one of my favorite songs. And there's something about that moment where I was like, man, I just don't want to give up yet. Like, there's a purpose, there's a reason for me, you know, to be here right now. So I just violently purged everything and woke up the next day. The funny part was drinking all those Red Bulls for all those years kind of built this extreme tolerance to like caffeine and the Adderall. So it kind of in some ways saved my ass. But yeah, that was an intense experience, but it still took 2 more months after that for me to really hit a bottom in life. And when I did, man, that was just like, it was time to start over. So that's kind of I just gave a long rant about kind of who I am, but you know, what that's taken me to right now, like, I'll dive into anything you want, but where it's taken me today is this: everything that I've gone through in life, you know, whether it was, you know, going through divorce as a kid, you know, being exposed to pornography when I was a little kid too, like just all of these different things, people pleasing, you know, abusing caffeine, all that stuff. Like, where it got me to today was this understanding that, man, I know that I'm built to thrive through anything. And I can do that with this purpose of that I can serve other people because of it. Like, I'm very strong. Like, faith is a core foundation for me too, that's grown over the years. And I truly do believe that, like, my faith, God, whatever it is in your world, built me to thrive through adversity so I could serve other people. And it's true, man. Like, I've been through so many things I thought were like, I could not survive. And I'm like, I lived. Shit. All right. Like, I cannot be sunk. What's next? What's next? You know, I don't challenge it. I don't bring it on. I don't ask for it. But I just know, like, I can get through stuff. And so what I really discovered is that I didn't know what my values were in life. You know, all my values that I had growing up were the values that were defined by other people. Right. Values that other people told me I should have. The things that would make me happy, the cars, the clothes, that happiness is a 6-figure salary. You know, all of these things were put into my head, act a certain way, talk a certain way, and I would just conform. And all that led me to was looking good on paper. I looked good on the outside, but man, on the inside, I was just empty, like just broken. I was so miserable. Yet people are saying like, man, I wish I had your life. I'm like, shit, you don't. You know, I mean, it literally almost destroyed my marriage. I mean, it almost destroyed me. It destroyed a lot of relationships that I was in. I was, you know, seriously, I was a manipulator. I was a bully at times. I was lying, you know, like I was just not in a good place. And the thing was, I didn't want to be that way. I was just hurting inside, man. So I really decided that it was time to go forward in life and rediscover, not reinvent, but rediscover my values in life. Go back to that time period where it was much simpler and realize what were the things that I really enjoyed doing, the things that really filled me up, the things that made me feel proud of myself. You know, what were those things? And to tap back into that and completely restructure my life from the ground up again. And that's what I've spent the past 8 years doing, man. Yeah, that's the past 8 years. And, you know, and I'll tell you what, the journey in my 20s that I thought was like something I couldn't survive was just a warm up to what would end up coming into my 30s. You know, that was the warm up. And I was like, so thankful for it. It's amazing to be thankful for some really shitty experiences in your life, knowing that it prepared you and trained you for the bigger, you know, for the bigger thing coming later on. Yeah. I'm so thankful for it, man.
Well, that's why they say everything's a freaking journey, man, because I mean, everywhere you go, there you are. At the same token, everything you've done has built you to what's coming up next, man. It's freaking awesome. You know, I'm curious. I can't tell you how many guys I bring on the show and gals that had to hit some sort of fucking rock bottom to start climbing. And, you know, I've got the same story, you know, of the stupid shit and having to freaking bottom out. You know, why the hell do we do that? Why the hell do we put ourselves so freaking south before we start trying to find our way out of it and going for it? I mean,
you know, here's the honest truth to it is I don't think you realize how incredibly creative and resourceful you are until your back's up against the wall.
Right.
So you've actually been challenged. You don't know how friggin' brilliant you are. And like, I really had no idea what I was capable of until my back was against the wall. And I was like, holy cow, this, again, on paper, I should not have survived or gotten through any of this stuff. But here I am, you know, and it's a testimony, man, that we are so, and I work with clients on that stuff too, where I've had people say like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to start this business yet. I've got 30,000 in savings. I got a great job, but you know, I need to make sure that this business I start is going to be a sure thing. And I'm like, a sure thing?
Then you don't even start
it. I'm like, you know what your problem is? You're never going to do this business. I told him straight up. I said, you know why? You're not desperate enough.
Yep.
I was like, that's it. What's going to happen when you lose all that savings? You know, you get sick, someone dies, you lose your job. What are you going to do? Just give up? You'll find a way. You'll fight like hell.
Yep.
And that's the thing. And it's funny you mentioned that because this last year, my wife and I decided to go on this journey to show people that you don't have to be against the wall in order to take a transformational step in life. Like, if there's something you truly want to do in life, go after it, man. Like, so we thought about that every single day. We always thought about what it would be like to be traveling, you know, to not have the mortgage anymore, be free and have less stuff. Yet every day we did the total opposite. We accumulated more crap, more debt. So finally we had enough. And it was actually my wife who took the initiative. I remember coming home one day, it was, I think in May of 2018. And there's like people boxing stuff up in the house. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, we're doing this. You're either coming or you're not. And I was like, holy shit. All right, let's do it. You know, and so I was already kind of preparing for it, but I was going at a different route, and she needed a different way of going about it. So they were just packers. We were packing stuff for something we didn't know we were going to do. You know, we had no idea what we're going to do, but we just started packing and purging. We used a guest room in our house. It was about a 10 by 11 guest room. We used that as an offsite template. We're like, all right, if it fits in this room, we keep it. If it doesn't, it's out. You know, so we filled that room with stuff that we absolutely love. You know, I kept some family treasures, my vinyl collection, any musical instruments, like that was the stuff. I'm like, this stuff brings me joy. The rest of it's garbage. I don't care anymore. You know, and again, we still don't know what we're going to do. All we know is we want to travel. We want to spend the first year, if we can, just maybe in an RV, maybe another part of the country. We'll find a way to do it cheap and cheerful, man. And so, yeah, we just kept planning and got a leasing agent, got a real estate agent, figured out what's going to be best. Lease the house, sell the house, figured leasing the house is going to be the best thing. We could make some money off of it. Awesome. Put it on the market, man. Dude, within like in a week, man, we had a dream client. Unbelievable. They paid us all 8 months up front. Who does that? You know? Yeah, they were like, we don't like doing monthly payments, so I hope you don't mind we pay up front. I was like, I totally get it. I don't like monthly payments either. So, you know, I would do the same thing.
Right.
So, you know, amazing experience having that. And so the thing with my business, I can work from anywhere in the world, man. As long as I've got internet and cell phone, I'm golden. And so, yeah, like we've got this house up for lease now. We've got to get out by the end of June. We still don't know where we're going yet. You know, we got a 5-year-old. We've got all these unanswered questions, man. I go to one of my men's groups that I'm in, bunch of great guys, and I'm like, hey, and I went on LinkedIn and posted it there too. I'm like, I'm going on an adventure. I'm documenting this thing. I'm letting go of all of my stuff that's held me hostage. I'm like, I need help finding an RV or a place to crash for a few months. You know, we want to go on an adventure, my family and I. Who's got something? You know, because our credit was pretty rough still from when I was in debt from being sick and all this other stuff in my life. And so, but yeah, like we were planning on leaving Texas by July 11th. That was our deadline. No matter what, we'll go to Maine if we have to. That's where we're from. We got family there. And literally, we didn't secure an RV until like the week before we left. Like a good friend of mine from my group said, hey, we got an RV. And I was like, sweet. He goes, we got a motorhome. It's a 45-foot motorhome. It sleeps 10. I'm like, awesome, dude. Like, if you got room for my wife and I, my son, and we got 2 bulldogs, man, 2 English bulldogs. That's cool. We'll do it. Gave us a great deal on it every month. We had it for 3 straight months, man. I never drove one of those things in my entire life. Like, plans were changing at the last second on what we were going to be doing. But finally, we end up, he takes it with his family. He's got like 4 kids of his own, takes it to Nashville, Tennessee. We meet him in Nashville, Tennessee, and then we ride with him all the way to New York, drop him and his family off at a vacation place, and then we take it to Maine from there. That was the first time I ever drove that thing. It was that day. 45-foot motorhome, and I'm towing my Jeep behind it too.
Tell me you've seen the Robin Williams movie RV.
Oh yeah, man. Dude, I almost turned that thing into a convertible going through Niagara Falls. We just missed the low clearance sign. My buddy's 6'7". He's leaning out the window to make sure we don't clip the thing. But you know, that was the thing. We wanted to show people though, like, look, we've always dreamed about doing this one thing every single day. What would happen if we just did it? It's not like, you know, most people wouldn't do something like that unless they were going to lose their house or something extreme happened. We're like, no, we just want to do this. Let's do it. Let's just try it. Right. Man, we've had a blast, dude. Like right now I'm staying in I don't own this house. This house belongs to a friend of mine I went to high school with, you know, out in Maine. It's about 20 minutes from where I grew up. And he's like, yeah, once you guys are done with the RV, you can crash at this place. You know, they live in Connecticut now. And they gave us a great deal to stay here every month. That's just completely unheard of. We're having a blast here, man. Granted, it's a town of 500 people. There's not many people here at all. Right. Like my son is going to kindergarten right now at the same school I went to. You know, his grandmother, my mother, works in the school. Like, this is a crazy experience. So, you know, I wanted this chapter for my son. I wanted a chance to kind of get out there and explore, but my son's getting a chance to play with his grandparents every day. You know, and that was an experience I didn't really have to. My grandparents weren't young enough to really like play with me as a kid, but he's four-wheeling, snowmobiling. He's out. He's filthy every day he comes home. No iPad in his hand, man. He's playing in the dirt, and I love it, man. So that's awesome, man. Yeah, you don't have to be against the wall.
Yeah, you know, here's what I tell everybody is one, before I say that, good on you, because a lot of people talk a lot of shit, right? You know, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Freaking kudos for actually doing it, man. That's badass. It really is. You know, and I love this entire thought process of you don't have to be stacked against the wall. Because I tell everybody, dude, if you're not getting punched in the face every freaking day, you're not going for it, right? You're not screwing things up, blowing things up. So you don't have to be rock bottom. You just got to be moving forward.
Yeah.
You know,
let me tell you this, man. Like, just because I went after my dream doesn't mean it's been easy. This year has stretched the shit out of me. Like, I mean, it has stretched me. It's stretched my marriage at times, but then it's also brought us back together. You know, like, it has challenged me. Like I told you, all I need is Wi-Fi and cell phone to run my business. These are two things that don't exist in Maine. Like, it's been challenging at times to do that. I'm doing my business from the Jeep in town somewhere, or like in a basement of a library, like whatever it takes. But it's really challenged us as a family to come together more. And honestly, it's making me healthier in a lot of ways too. But there are times, man, where it really rocked my world. I mean, back in October, man, I battled depression sometimes as a side effect of some health issues. And man, it got me so hard when I was here in Maine in October that I didn't have the support system that I do in Austin. I checked into a hospital, man. Like I was really struggling. But I'm man enough and smart enough and aware enough to know, like, hey, what I'm thinking right now, that's not real. Like, this is not real stuff. What I'm going through is not cool, but I need to tap out and go get some help. You know, because one of the greatest lessons I've learned in this journey is no one climbs a mountain alone.
God damn,
you know,
right.
No man climbs a mountain alone, no woman, no person. No one climbs a mountain. You never heard of someone saying they climbed Everest by themselves. Like, you hear about someone who died trying, but like, you know, it's just like you have your tribe, you have your people. And I tell you, man, along the way in life, I learned how to ask for help, and I learned how to surround myself with a strong circle of strong men of faith, you know, strong guys that are not just going to talk sports with me, but they're going to talk about what matters in life, what's going on underneath the surface, that really genuinely care. The ones that'll be there for me when I'm struggling, but will also call me out of my crap when I need it too. Call me forth and tell me to step up, you know? So that's been game changing for me.
Absolutely. You know, here's what's interesting is when I was really starting my business, at the 6-month mark, I was about ready to shut my business down because it wasn't working. And there was a couple of common denominators. One, I'd been an employee for 20 years and I didn't know how to be a business owner. I didn't know how to change the mindset to a business. Second thing, I was so prideful and so egotistical, I was refusing to ask advice of anybody because I didn't want anybody to know how bad I was screwing shit up, you know? And it really took me taking a huge dose of freaking humble pie to start reaching out and asking for help, where people started giving me advice and I was able to pull my head out of my ass.
Yeah. But I guarantee you're probably the type of guy, I can just tell, like, you do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, that you're used to people coming to you looking for the guidance.
100%. 100%.
You know, so it's like, oh, you know, for me, that was the same thing. And I was like, man, if I tell somebody I'm struggling, they're probably going to think, oh shit, this is really bad. Like,
right.
This guy's in a bad place. Fuck, we should all just off ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, like, it's not good. You know, but that was a lie. And here's where I really learned that lesson. So 2013 was a real year of transition for me. I'm still working in retail. My wife is just about ready to give birth to our son, and it's around April, and so we're all ready for this. We got it planned. She's going to be out of work for 6 months. We got a brand new house built in a nice part of Austin. I've got a great job with Under Armour at the time, and I'm still traveling a lot, but things are going well. And then the day comes when my son's being born, and everything didn't go well. Like, everything, like the whole thing, our whole birth plan just went way bonkers, you know, and it looked pretty scary for a while. I wasn't sure if either one of them were going to make it at one point. And man, what a terrifying feeling it was, because I'd done all this work already to rebuild myself, you know, and go through all this boot camp of self-discovery. And now I have this family opportunity. I feel like it's all going to be taken away, you know? And so I'm sitting there in this empty hospital room because I can't go in. Like, I wanted to be in there. My wife's having an emergency C-section. I want to be in there for it. But then all of a sudden they tell me you can't go in. She's got to go under anesthesia. She can feel everything. So we got to give her anesthesia. That was her worst nightmare. And for me too, like, I can't be there for it, you know? So I push the nurse out of the way. I go in anyways, and I just let her know everything's going to be okay. And then things get really crazy and I have to leave. So I'm just waiting there hoping something works out. And finally they wheel my son into that room, just him. And man, I tell you, when I saw my son's face, like, everything changed. Like, something clicked inside that just said, all right, like, my time's good. Like, I've had my moment in the sun to be cool and do all that stuff. Everything's about him now. And I was like, I want to show this kid what it means to build something of his own. I want to show him it's never too late in life to go after your dream, your passion, you know, what your purpose is in life. Just all these thoughts happened within a half a second. And then the next thing happened was like, his whole birth plan was out of order. You know, he's been born into trauma. I don't want this kid feeling alone in this world. So all I knew how to do, like, I just took my shirt off, I held him against my skin, and just wanted him to feel safe. You know, no matter what, this kid's going to be all right. and I just held him against me, man. And it was pure bliss. And finally my wife came out, over an hour later, and she was beat up pretty bad from it, but luckily she recovered, but it took a long time. But it was a beautiful moment, and it made me really thinking, like, why have I been traveling so much all these years? Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to miss out on this kid's life. 25 nights a month, I'll see him on weekends, if that. And even when I'm home on weekends, I'm not that present, And so, my wife's recovering. My dad's there. He flew down from Maine with my stepmother, my 2 half sisters, and my dad and I, best friends, man. Super cool dude. And having him there and sharing that moment with him, sitting on the couch, he's got his arm around me. He's holding my son. Like, it was just like perfection in that moment, And so that was really cool. Even though my wife was really hurting, like, that moment was still pretty sweet. And I remember before my dad got on a plane, literally like the next day, he gave me some simple, like, dad advice just about checking the temperature of the milk and stuff on your wrist and all that. But he told me, a couple things. I remember one, he told me, he's looking out on the back patio of my house. It was just a beautiful home. He just said, man, you've made it. Like, this house is gorgeous. Like, looking at the sunset, I'm proud of you. You made it. And one of the last things he said before he left was, like, you're going to be a great father. And then it was just unreal. And I remember June 5th, shortly after, about a month later, I'm talking to my dad on the phone, because we talk like 3-4 times a week. And, talking to him, my wife is actually in Maine right now at that time. Like, a month after our son's born, her grandmother passes away. And so she gets on a plane. She's hurt, and she can't bring our son with her because she's too still hurt. But she's there in Maine. My dad's actually going to go visit her at the airport on the 6th before she flies back to Texas to go say hi to her. They're very close. And so I'm having a great chat with my dad about something. Like, we talked about random stuff. I remember telling him I'd burned 1,200 calories mowing the lawn because I was wearing a garbage bag suit. He goes, why would you? What's wrong with you? I was like, I just wanted to see if I could do it. He's like, you're in Texas, you're insane. But we had those conversations. He was screaming at the cable company about something. We had a good chat. But something did feel a little strange about that call. But all I did was just choose to stay present. I said, I love you. And we hung up the phone. And then next morning I got the call, and he had passed away. He was gone instantly from, basically like a heart attack, and, just gone. It was over. And it was an incredible shock. And, that moment really shook me up quite a bit, having to go home and fly back. And my mom was actually in Texas with me at that time. And she had to take care of my son, and she was going to fly back with him a couple days later. And I had to take off that night. But it was a big wake up call, man. And I also started looking at what I was grateful for too. I was grateful I had a moment to say goodbye to him. And I had that chance to say, I love you one more time. And I'm grateful that when he passed, there was nothing left unsaid between him and I. We did it all, man. We were best friends. We got to know each other a little bit as men, and I got to thank him for all the heroic dad stuff he did for me growing up. Like, they were divorced. My mom and my dad were divorced by the time I was like a year old, so I have no memories of them together. But, he would travel 2 hours sometimes one way just to visit me for 2 hours. And he would pick me up every other weekend, and I'd spend that time with him. He never complained. He never spoke a bad word about my mom. They got along really well too, but like, I just didn't realize what a superhero kind of thing that was, and he worked 30 years as a maintenance man for his ex-mother-in-law, like he did whatever it takes, and, man, I just learned so many lessons from that guy, but I'm thankful I had a chance in life to thank him for that. And before he passed. And so it's really cool. Like, and he taught me everything about music, man. So at his funeral, I had, I played the Beatles. We had Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight in the End were the 3 songs that played at his funeral. Those are the last 3 songs of Abbey Road, man, that symbolized the end of the Beatles. And it was a beautiful moment. Now I have a quote from the Golden Slumbers album above my son's crib at the time. And so, very special, but that started the whole kickoff on transition, man. Like, those 2 things happened real quick. And I was like, something's got to change. So, it was about a year later, I finally explored coaching and said, man, the only thing I love about this retail gig is developing people. Like, I love that. I was responsible for the operations and loss prevention and the marketing, delivering revenue. But my main thing was I hired teams, I built teams, I developed them, and we delivered great results. You know, I focused on that. You take care of your people first as a servant style leadership, you know, and then the results will follow. And so I took care of my people first. And that's the part of the job I loved. I could care less about selling shirts and shoes, man. It just didn't make sense to me anymore. You know, the intensity around the Kool-Aid drinking and all that. I'm thankful for the experience I got. I worked for some great companies, but it just didn't make sense to me anymore. You know, I was like, I feel like I'm called to do something different here.
Wanted to jump in here and take a second to let our sponsors tell you a little bit about what they do. Guys, do me a favor and check them out. They're really helping this show become what it's becoming.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Point Blank Safety Services does safety differently. We know everyone is on a journey, and we want to make sure you get where you're going safely. Professional, trained, ready. There's really no comparison. Here's why hiring Point Blank Safety for your next project will make all the difference and save you huge amounts of stress and hassle. Point Blank Safety Services provides certified, uniformed police officers for a full suite of armed guard services. Don't leave the safety of your project to chance. If you're ready to make sure safety truly comes first for your next project, then visit us at pointblanksafety.com. Blue Family Fund, helping dependents of law enforcement families on their journeys. Blue Family Fund is a nonprofit that raises funds and offers financial support through higher education scholarships for dependents of law enforcement officers and by providing financial assistance for families of fallen law enforcement officers. Every dollar donated will go to the families of police officers, either through scholarships to dependents of police officers or as aid to fallen officers' families. Visit us at bluefamilyfund.com.
And now back to the show.
And so I wanted to go to this school, the Coaches Training Institute, but it was like 15 grand of money that I didn't have. My wife is still out of work. I mean, we're now a year of her out of work. We didn't budget for that. We're hurting. And so my wife, though, I remember telling her, I was like, I really want to do this thing. Like, I feel called, but we don't have the money. And I'm complaining a lot. And finally she said, why don't you quit being such a sissy and sign up for it? We'll find the money.
God, I love
it'll work out. God will provide somehow. We'll find the money. And I was like, that was a high five moment, you know, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And, you know, I learned a very important lesson because when I called the school, I got in touch with a program advisor and I was like, there's no way I can afford to do the whole thing. So I'm just going to do the first class. You know, I'll do that. I'll piece it together. And I can't finance anything. I don't have any credit, so can't do that. I get on the phone with them, start telling them my situation. They're like, oh, yeah, well, we can do a payment plan. There's no financing. Just pay before the course. You know, we'll make it work. And I was like, holy cow, this could be doable now. It was an important lesson I started to learn there. You don't know what's possible till you ask.
Right.
You know, you just don't know what's possible. I could have let those voices in my head shut me down. And I never would have found out. But I found a way to make it happen. I show up to my first course, man. I'm telling you what, I knew something special was happening because as I'm driving to this weekend course for the first one, I'm scared. And I hadn't felt fear in a while about doing something. I hadn't felt fear in a while. I was like, man, this is something stirring up. I was like, this must mean something's important. This is important to me because I'm getting that thought in my head. Like, I feel like I'm born to do this. What if I'm no good at it? Yep. That thought, like when I'm having that fear, I'm like, that means something's important's going to happen, man. I showed up into that class and I left it all on the table. Like as soon as I walked in there, I was like, I found my people. I just knew it. The energy in the room, there's about 18 of us there. There's 2 facilitators. And I just instantly knew I was home. And it was the first time I felt like, man, I belong here. And I'll tell you what, they started the whole course off. They said, hey, who wants to experience coaching for the first time? Who wants to be coached in front of the whole room? I'm like, yeah, I'm game. Like I've spent a lot of money on it. Like, let's do it. I spilled my guts out to everybody there. You know, I'm crying and like the facilitators were emotional too. And they said, let's just take a 15-minute break. And so like, I'm getting some water, you know, and I'm trying to catch my breath. And I'm like, man, what have I done? And the facilitators came up to me, Cynthia Lloyd-Darst and Randy Brenneman, and they said, man, do you know what you just did? I was like, I don't know. I was crying a lot and stuff. It's kind of a blur. And they said, well, you went so deep, you know, so vulnerable that you basically gave everyone else in this room permission to do the same. This is going to be a great weekend. Like you just, what it normally takes 2 days into the course before someone gets to that point. Like you just came out of the gate that way. And it taught me a lesson right there too, the strength and vulnerability. You know, that was something I believed in too, that like, look, you know, sharing our vulnerability, man, really is a strength, and it gives permission for others to do the same. And it also connects our stories, man. It makes us feel like we're not alone. So,
Right. Yeah,
you know,
dude,
I brought
love
that
it.
mentality everywhere I went.
You know, it's so wild. And I think my wife and your wife would get along really, really well, because
Yeah.
there was a time when my company was on the rocks, and I'm looking at my wife going, babe, I don't know if we're going to be able, we're going to lose the farm. We're going to lose the trucks. I built a second home on a property for my mother-in-law. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do with her. Without skipping a beat, she was teary-eyed. She looked right back at me. She did, go sell something. I don't care what, get off your ass and go sell something. And that's what I did. You know, I mean,
There you go, man.
and it just sometimes, man, Superman fucking had Lois Lane, right? You know,
Right.
You know, that's awesome. So you dive into this coaching program, you know, and I love the whole machismo thing where you get all the dudes together and do their thing. Because you always figure out who's got the real machismo and who's been faking their entire life. You know?
You got that right, man. I've been on both ends.
Oh, you and me both. You and me
Yeah.
both. You know, it's interesting. You know, through your journey, you kind of get this constant theme of it's the moments, right? There's certain moments in time that have just impacted you greatly, right? You know, is that something you're teaching to other people? Is to look for the moments?
Yeah, man. That's that call to adventure. You know, I became a huge fan of Joseph Campbell and his hero's journey.
Yeah, freaking dude. You know, I built this show because of Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, I watched his documentary, Finding Joe, like 1,000 times, you know, and that storytelling process really inspired me. And before I even did that, I already named my company Life Story Coaching, because I had this belief system. Like, it's like, man, you know what? Like, everybody's got a powerful life story. The problem is, like, so many people haven't told it. They've never said it out loud, or they minimize it and compare it to somebody else's.
Right.
You know, you don't have to do something extraordinary in life to have a powerful story, but we all got one. You know, the facts might be different, but the feelings and emotions we work through are the same, you know, and you just can't compare it to anybody else's. So, you know, I really started to embrace that concept. And I love teaching that to other people. The thing is that I want to make sure that I can be there to help show people their blind spots so that they know how to answer that call to adventure. You know, that call to adventure isn't always sunshine and rainbows, man. Sometimes it's you lose your job, your whole world gets flipped upside down, you know, and that's that call to adventure. And you have to choose whether or not you're going to answer it. So I want to be there with people. Most of the people who come to me, they know something's happening. They either sense it's coming and they don't know what to do, or they're in it. And they're like, I've never experienced this and I'm ready to do something different. Right. You know, I get people come to me when they're starting to ask questions usually, and they're getting curious. Like, the way I've been doing things isn't right. There's got to be a different way, but I have no idea what that looks like. All I know is what I know, you know, that's it. And so, you know, look, I had my calling. Like, I already thought I had my call to adventure. No, man, those were just warm-ups, you know, those were just touch bases.
Well, I think when people get that knock on the door, that knock on the head, or the kick in the ass, however you want to look at it, you know, you either step in or shut the hell up. I mean, that's my opinion, because I think too many people are talking a big game. I'm going to do this. I'm going to accomplish this. Well, fucking start doing it. Don't sit there and tell me that it's going to go. Step into it. Yeah. Dude, and I got to tell you, I love the fact that you said when you were on that drive that fear popped up, and you know, that's when you knew, that's it, man. Man, I think that fear, when it comes in, that's the universe saying, dude, it's the right fucking direction.
Dude, that stuff, like, so in coaching, like, we all have that saboteur voice, that voice that tells us we're not good enough, or we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, the education, all that crap. Like, everyone's got that voice that we've inherited over time from someone in some place in some things. And it's important to know it, because when it shows up, it doesn't show up just for shits and giggles. It shows up because you're about to do something incredible.
Right.
You know, that's the only time it shows up. It's terrified of change, man. And the messed up thing is that voice is not trying to be malicious to you. It's just terrified. It's trying to protect you from getting hurt, taken advantage of, burned, losing, you know, whatever. It comes from a place of fear, though. And so teaching people and me learning how to silence that voice, you can't get rid of it. It's always going to be there, but you got to learn how to take its power away.
Right.
And not let it steer the ship anymore. Because look, I always tell people this. I'm like, look, you got that voice in your head. If this was your company, would that voice be in your C-suite? They're like, no. I'm like, well, then take them out of it. Like, put this person in the basement. Like, put them with the file cabinets and stuff. Like, take the power away from that person. But listen to it. When you feel that voice coming up, man, something's happening. You know, what's on the other side of it?
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, because they haven't had a lot of experience in their life,
yeah,
stepping into that fear, because so many people play the game of good enough.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a killer sales career and did really, really well. But it wasn't until I jumped out of my own, started my own company, that I realized that I was national awards and all that shit, but it was just good enough, right? Yeah. I was never fully freaking betting on myself. But it's amazing once you realize that you've kind of been half-assed in life as a whole.
Dude, and that's the thing. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're supposed to do it.
Right.
Like, you can be extraordinary at something else though, and you can feel it when you are. And so look, you can either make the jump yourself, or you might get kicked into it. And for me, like, I was taking the steps, but it was going to take me an eternity to make that move into full-time coaching, because I had this story again. Man, I can't afford to take a 10% pay cut. Like, I can't take any pay cut right now. But I had started working with clients from day one. You want to talk about why it was meant to be? First night of my first class, I had my first paying client. They didn't even know I was a coach yet. They found me on LinkedIn, an 18-year-old guy from Chicago, Walter. He lets me tell the story. Like, he found me on LinkedIn. He said, man, I love your writing. I was already writing a lot about leadership and stuff, and exploring vulnerability in leadership. And he said, man, I like your style. I'd love to hire you as a mentor. I don't have much money though. He paid me $5 for 30 minutes of my time, man. It was the greatest PayPal alert I'd ever had. $5. I was like, woo! And they took their, 3% of that too. But like, still, someone paid me to do my dream. I was like, that's it. If one person's willing to pay me, someone else will pay me. And if someone paid me $5, someone will pay me 5,000 someday. Who knows? So I just started working with people. And the thing was like, I couldn't afford any other tools or resources. I was broke, and I was working 70 hours a week already. But I worked nights and weekends coaching people. I went on LinkedIn, man. That was a bold moment. I remember going on LinkedIn, and I changed my headline from like retail district manager, and I added life coach to it. I didn't care about the title. Everyone else worried about, what do you call yourself? I'm like, life coach, whatever. And I put it on there. I was like, wow, shit, I did it. I've declared it to the world now. But then I went back like 5 minutes later. I was like, wait a second. I was like, why did I put it second? Like, that's what my life purpose is. That's my calling. And I was like, well, I was afraid if my work saw that I put life coach first. I was like, screw it. And I did it. I put it first, and I changed it. And I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do. And that was it. Like, and I rewrote my summary, and I changed it from being about my company and all of the awards that I've won in my past and all the success I had to, this is what I believe in. I changed it to, I believe in comeback stories, and that's because I felt like I was one. There was a time earlier when I was 250 pounds and I had to lose all this weight and regain my life back again. And I was like, man, I love comeback story movies like Rocky and Rudy. I was like, why can't I be one? I can be one. I can do this shit.
Right.
So I did. And so I believed in that stuff. And so those were transformational moments. And I remember starting working with clients slowly over time. Anytime I could, I didn't worry about my niche. I didn't worry about having a website or an LLC or business cards or all that other crap. I just said, this is what I'm supposed to do. You got to get in the game. A shooter's got to shoot. A coach has to coach. Like, I could think about coaching all I want to and make the perfect business plan, but I'm not shit until I actually do something. I actually had a football coach that used to say that your potential doesn't mean shit till you do something. I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
Potential has a shelf life too. So I just got in the game.
It's so fun. Your and my story, there's a lot of similar crossovers, but the funny thing about it is I went the opposite route when I launched my company. I did the LLC, I did the website, and dude, everything that I put on my site originally is absolutely gone, right? Because for me, I had no clue what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay, I'm a badass sales guy. I'm great on stage. I'm going to put a shingle up and the world's going to open its arms and say, hey, Donnie finally arrived.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm here.
I am here.
Well, yeah, that doesn't work. So I actually had to get my teeth kicked in, and, have my business almost completely go under.
Right.
To realize, hey, this is what it means. And, getting my own coaches. And here's the funny thing. How many coaches are you working with right now?
Oh man, I've got like a few.
A
therapist.
Right. Well, the reason I bring that up is I can't tell you how many coaches that I've talked to over my journey, and I'm like, great. I'd love to work with you. Who do you coach with? Oh, I don't currently have a coach. Or
you're hitting a button, man.
And I'm like,
keep going.
I'm like, how the fuck are you coaching if you don't have a coach? You don't believe in coaching.
I can't afford
Get out of the game.
But I'll take your money.
Right.
That's like a doctor who doesn't believe in doctors. It's like, oh, no, I'm good. No, I don't. I don't believe in this crap.
Thing on LinkedIn, they're like, I'm looking for advice on X. I'm not interested in paying anybody, but I would like your opinion. I'm like, what?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. You got to have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
If you're going to take this seriously, you got to have some skin in the game. And I love that you said that because I totally believe in that. Coaches have to have coaches, and that's why I've always surrounded myself with people better than me, and I have a support system. I have men's groups that I go to. I have great friends that call me on stuff. I got coach friends. Like, man, I surround myself with great people because that's the only way I'm going to be great. And that was the other thing too. Like, I would have gone the same route you did and did all that planning work too. But the thing was, I was broke. Like, I had no money to do any of that stuff. All I had was a LinkedIn page that was free. And I was like, all right, I can roll. I didn't have a premium account, but I had a LinkedIn page. I'm like, I can roll with this. I'll just start writing. I'll just start telling stories, and there was no videos back then or anything like that. I've been on LinkedIn for like 8 years now. Like, that's old for LinkedIn. But like, I'd been on there for a while. I already had a decent following going too, but I was like, this is what I have to work with. I have no choice. I have to be creative. I have to be resourceful, but I refuse to let anything stop me from doing this, and I remember one thing was this cool thing about the course was every time you took a course, you were also qualified now to be an assistant in that course if they offered it again, and you could do it for free. It's like $1,000 class. You can be an assistant in now for free. So I remember there was a gap between my first class and my second class. I assisted in that class, like as an assistant, the next one before I took my second class. Like, I was all in, man. Like, I just wanted to flex that muscle as much as possible. And so everything changed by April 10th of 2015, though. I'm halfway through coaching school. I'm having a great time at my job, but things are starting to go downhill for me. My health is really struggling. Like, and things are changing. Like, I was a really gifted in the area of conflict resolution. Like, I was good with that stuff. I was good under pressure. I had massive amounts of energy. I could get stuff done. But all of a sudden I find myself falling asleep in between store visits. Like, I'm sleeping in the parking lot. I can barely stay awake during like my store visits. My emotions are all over the place. Like, if my boss was upset about something, which would be something minor, I was either Hulk-like angry or like crying. Like, I was like, why is this happening? Like, what's going on with me? I can't stop crying, and everything's changing. And I'm going through massive amounts of depression and energy levels are just depleted. And I turned out, man, I was getting sick. Like, I already knew I had a hormonal imbalance with testosterone. When I was 30, my body just basically said, hey, we're done doing this. I never abused, steroids or anything like that. I just stressed my body out so much. It's just said, hey, we're done. And so I had to start going on hormone treatments, but also, man, I was diagnosed with Addison's disease, where my body stopped making adrenaline and cortisol, the two hormones you need to fight stress. It's a rare autoimmune disorder. And so instead of going into fight or flight, when I get stressed emotionally and physically, I'd go into shock. I could go into adrenal crisis. It could be fatal. You can manage it, you can live with it, but it is a pain in the ass disease. And it's not a one size fits all thing. And it wreaks havoc on your emotional system too. My sense of well-being was all jacked up. I mean, there were days I couldn't brush my teeth. I was so tired, and I was diagnosed with narcolepsy. I just thought I liked naps, but like, no, I really like naps, and so, and then this other weird thing, cataplexy, all these labels started getting thrown on me. And then I started developing these weird muscle spasms that were like seizures. I couldn't go to the gym anymore. My body would just cramp up and I'd shake violently, and all this stuff was happening. And then my doctor was also saying, man, I think you got a traumatic brain injury from all the concussions in high school football. I was like, I didn't realize I had concussions, but I could document at least 12 major hits that I had that shook my dome pretty well, and being a human battering ram, I was like, man. And so all these things were domino effects. And so I sat there in the parking lot of my doctor's office on April 10th with all this stuff that was going on, and I'm a disaster. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I could take more medication, more pills, or maybe it's the job. Like, maybe it's time, And so, like, it was like still a blur. All I remember was I dialed HR in that parking lot, and I'm like in autopilot mode. And I just said, I'm not coming to work next week. I'm going on medical leave. And everything in between that, I can't remember what I said. And it was just like when I hung up the phone, all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, there's no turning back now. I knew what was going on. I just wanted to take a week off at first, but I knew in my heart this was it. And so, yeah, really, like a couple weeks went into it. My doctors were like, yeah, man, you're not really employable anywhere. Like you lose your shit so easily right now. You shouldn't work for anybody, and look, I had a job with my doctor briefly helping coach new people. And like, I had a conflict with the office. They fired me. Like, I lost my marbles, man. I've never been fired in my whole life. And I was fired, but he kept me as a patient, thank God, because he knew who I was at my core and he knew I was hurting, but I looked healthy on the outside. Right. I looked like this. I still looked healthy. And so I just looked like a raging tool to a lot of people. He's selfish. He's lazy. Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets stressed. It wasn't a brand name disease that I had. Right. If I said I had cancer, people would be, oh man, that's tough. But this stuff people didn't understand. And my behavior was so off the wall. My character was so shifted and rocked that, man, it was devastating sometimes, because I would lash out at people and I couldn't stop it. I felt horrible inside, And so, yeah, when I remember finally, though, that moment came when I was just like, I told my wife, I was like, I don't think I'm going back. I just can't. And I remember her saying, like, we have no plan, like, on how we're going to survive. We have an infant son. And she's just like, well, it's about damn time. It was just like, I was like, wow. I was like, well, somehow we're in this together here. But the first thing I did when I went on medical leave was, I was like, all right, I remember I've lived in Austin for like 7 years by that point, and I had zero friends in Austin. Like, I was always traveling. I had no community. No sense of community. And I forgot that was something so important to me. I used to volunteer. I used to be involved. Like, I didn't do any of that crap anymore. All of my value was determined by my performance in my job. That's it. It was one stream of value. That was it. And so I said, I've got to do things differently now. I can't grind away at building this new business. I don't have the energy for it. I'll get sick, even more sick than just working myself to death. So I got to do other stuff instead. So I made a list of like 30 people, both locally and from afar, that I wanted to get on the phone with or have coffee with and just hear their story. There were people that I respected, people I looked up to. I didn't know a lot of them that well. Some of them didn't even know who I was, but I just got on the phone, sent them an email, said, hey, I would love just to talk with you. Like, I don't want anything from you. I just want to have coffee. I just want to hear your story. I'm fascinated with your journey. Let me hear it. And that's it. And it really weirded people out at first. They were like, what do you want? Right. I was like, I don't want anything. Can you just tell me like what you've been through? All right. And then they opened up and they start telling me these great stories. Unintentionally out of that, though, what I got was all these doors opened up. People started asking me this question, what can I do for you? I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, but what I did say was like, well, who do you know that's got a great story that I could talk to also? And just kept expanding my network, but I had a sense of community. I started volunteering at my church. I started volunteering with other people. I got involved and I did things that were life-giving, with whatever energy I had. I spent time with my family. I started playing music again, picked up the guitar, started playing that again. I was like, man, this feels good, and then I worked on my business on the side, but the one thing I learned about my business was, since I couldn't afford all these tools, all I had was LinkedIn, was I did this one thing every day until I got it down. I realized all the tools I invest in are shit unless I know how to talk about what I do. So I purposely put myself in situations where people would ask me that damn question, what do you do? Because I didn't know how to answer. It was so messy every time. I was like, I transform people. I'm good with people. I help people. I just didn't know how to answer it, in a way where people's eyes didn't glaze over, but I put myself in that position every single time I could until I could get comfortable with it. Because I was like, man, if I don't know how to answer that question, I have no business spending any money on this business. It's stupid. I got to learn how to talk about this. If I don't have the guts to talk to somebody at the line at Starbucks about what I do, a random stranger, then why am I going to invest money in this thing and look for some magic pill? I got to do the work. I got hands dirty. So this whole thing of building the business in the beginning was grassroots, baby. Like, it was a grassroots mentality. I leveraged every blessing I had from my retail past that I learned, the business acumen, all of those things. I realized the things that burned me out in life were also things that I had advantages over that my peers didn't necessarily have training in. I was like, man, I can't forget about that experience. I can't disown it. I got to leverage that. That was training.
Right.
I'm going to do this shit, And so, yeah, I started using LinkedIn. I started using my community, and I just did the work every day. I never had a budget for marketing or advertising because I couldn't afford it. Dude, there were times when I was going to see a client in town and I didn't have gas money to go see them. Like, I had to bum money. I was like, man, I got to have money so I can actually make some money. This sucks. This is humbling, And we lived in this beautiful house. On paper, everything looked good, until my friend said, hey, man, you need help. Like, you're going downhill. And if we had lost the house, man, we didn't have credit to really get anywhere else. Like, my wife was out of work. And so my friend set up a GoFundMe page for my family at the time. This was only like 3 years ago, man. And like, here we were, like, publicly going to ask everyone for help. Like, that was humiliating to me. I was like, no way in hell, man. Like, are people going to judge me? And you think, nah, he's just lazy. He's selfish. There he goes again. He's got a nice place already. Screw that. Like, this guy's an idiot. And again, that fear, that voice told me that there's a purpose for this. And so my wife and I, we just kind of surrendered to it. We said, all right, launch it. We told our story. We put it out there. My friend launched it. Then 5 minutes, someone put $300 in my bank account. And that moment, this was just someone that I just started to get to know. And they put $300 in my bank, and it just immediately slayed that dragon, that I'm not worth it. I'm not, I don't have value, that people don't care about me. Just slayed it instantly. And I was like, man. And so from there, like, a lot of people really reached out and helped us. And I just did everything I possibly could to make the best out of it, and I found a balanced way of doing it without working myself to death. Because that whole mentality of like, you got to give up sleep to make your dreams come true. I was like, bullshit. Like, giving up sleep is what got me sick, almost killed me. I got to sleep. I need to focus. Like, I can't complain about being sick if I'm feeding myself garbage every day, if I'm not going to the gym, if I'm not sleeping enough, if I'm not making time for like prayer, meditation, and I'm not surrounding myself with great people. Those 5 things are my supply lines. If you don't protect your supply lines, man, you're setting yourself up for a loss. Those things you have total control over. The rest of life, there's not much you can control. But those 5 things, man, I cannot bitch about my life if those things are garbage. So I took control of that stuff and instantly started changing the game, man. Like, the stuff I had was really debilitating at times, but like, I really was able to overcome a lot of that stuff. And the business started growing and growing and growing, and momentum was building. There were hills and valleys along the way, stuff that scared the crap out of me, times where it felt like things weren't going to work out. But like, every time, man, I just remembered, like, I can survive this. It'll work out, because honestly, like, for me, having faith means like, it's not going to make logical sense. Like, and sometimes logic just is a real bitch and gets in the way of doing, like, it really gets in the way of success. Logic is sometimes fear. Like, sometimes fear likes to hide in logic and says, well, yeah, it just makes sense. You don't have enough money. It's on paper. You don't have the money. You don't have the time. And I'm like, suddenly though, I'm realizing like, but it's working out somehow. Somehow it's working out, man. So yeah, I just kept doing it. I kept plowing away. And I'm telling you, like, it was at least like a year after that, I was doing a speech in Irvine, California, and I was still pretty sick at the time, but I had enough energy to do this talk about LinkedIn at this beautiful seminar. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I'm having the time of my life at this thing, and thinking like, wow, but I don't have the health or the energy to work with the number of clients I need to pay my bills. And I had this voice I heard, for me and my faith, I heard this voice telling me, well, why don't you just raise your rates? I was like, can't raise my rates. People will say no. I've been doing this that long. And again, God, that voice came back to me and said, I didn't ask for your opinion. I just said, raise your rates. Oh, shit. All right, I'll raise my rates. And I raised my rates to a level that made me super uncomfortable to say out loud. Like, I wanted to throw up in my mouth every time I told people what I charged. And then someone said yes. I was like, no shit. Like, you know, and that changed everything. You know, I stopped playing myself short, you know, and I stopped devaluing what I did. I stopped giving away what I did for free too. I was like, this is my purpose, man. This is my craft. I'm not giving this thing away. No one's going to take me seriously. You know, so I started charging more and more and more for it. And I started putting a value on it. I started putting a value on myself too. And I started owning that, you know? And so it changed everything. And I remember finally saying, like, I went on a trip to Colorado Springs. I'm at the Garden of the Gods in 2016 and watching the sunrise before I go to this men's retreat out in Winter Park. And I remember watching the sun coming up and I just declared it out loud. I was like, I am no longer sick. Like, all those labels, I'm done with it. I'm no longer sick. Everything's going to work out. That changed everything, man. Because by the time, it was around 2016, 2017, like everything changed, man. Had the best time ever. And I started overcoming a lot of my health issues. I still got some of the stuff now that I work through, but dude, it's nothing. Like, it was 15 medications down to 3 now.
That's awesome.
You know, and after a couple years of running my business, I'm 4 years into this thing, man. I completely replaced that old salary I had in corporate with my own business, working half the amount of time, you know, doing it my way and having a mind-blowing experience now, you know, like I'm loving it. And it's not just my work anymore that fills time with my wife. You know, I'm hiking mountains. It's good times, man.
That's awesome.
Things are changing.
Man, I gotta tell you, you've got a hell of a journey, hell of a story, man. And I really hope people listen to the details in there and got the golden nuggets you dropped about just keep going after and keep going through it, man.
Yeah, so I ranted for quite a while.
Oh, dude, I would have cut you off.
I had a lot of caffeine, so.
You're all good, brother. All good. Man, dude, seriously, thank you for coming in here and sharing your story, sharing your journey with the champions listening to the show. Here's how I like to wrap up everything. And I do stump some people with this, so stand by.
Oh, boy. All right, I'm ready.
If you were going to leave the champions who listen to this show with a quote, a phrase, a mantra, a saying, you know, something they can take with them on their journey, especially if they're stacked up against it, trying to figure out where to go. What's that quote or phrase you would say? Remember this.
Live with a courageous heart. Like, that's been my motto from day one. Live with a courageous heart. And here's where that comes from for me. One, it's my life purpose statement. You know, I have a life purpose statement that says, I am the courageous heart that passionately beats to empower and serve the hurt, broken, and lost. So every day when I wake up, that's an identity I step into, you know, and remember, like, that's my purpose in life, is to serve that group of people, that same group that I was. And there's also, whether you're a faith or not a faith, you know, I've got a scripture in my headline on LinkedIn, 1 Samuel 17:48. And what's cool about that is it references David and Goliath. And what it references is this. It says, David ran towards Goliath. Who runs towards a 9-foot monster, you know, with just a couple of stones in his hand and has no fans on either side of the field? It made me think in my life, what giants are in my life that I should be running towards? You know, and that's the reminder. That's like, and living with a courageous heart means living a life aligned with your values, not the values defined by someone else, but your values. That's living with a courageous heart, being fearless of the judgment of others, being willing to hear people call you crazy, and still going after it, because going after it, you're following that peace that's right here. And it doesn't mean just because you're following the peace doesn't mean it's easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to stretch you, you know, but man, the transformation that's on the other side of that, bro, that's what you got to go after. That is living with a courageous heart. That's taking the risks in life. You know, when your back's not up against the wall and choosing to go after it anyways, because that's what you're called to do. So dude, that's my thing. Live with a courageous heart.
Love it, dude. Man, it's going to be fun to continue to watch your journey as you continue to take on life, man. Thanks for jumping in and letting us be a part of your story, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you need content for your company and you're struggling to figure out what should I put out there, how should I put it out there, or, you know, what can I do to make my company get more exposure on social media, go check out successchampions.us. You know, because of the podcast boom, several people are really looking in to launch their own podcasts, their own shows, so they can get their own message out there. Well, why don't you come hang out with us? We've got a Facebook group called So You Want a Podcast. And, you know, just go to Facebook, type in So a comma, you want to podcast, and come hang out with a bunch of us as I teach everything that I've learned on my journey to running a successful, profitable show. So check us out. So You Want a Podcast. Looking forward to seeing you there.